What is the one thing you can do that can turn a liberal arts education into a meaningful job? We'll talk about that and much more on today's Money in the Morning. Welcome to Money in the Morning. I'm Bobby Rebell from the Financial Grown Up Podcast, coming to you from my very grown up kitchen in New York City.
I'm Joe Saul-Sehy from Stacky Benjamins, live from Detroit, Michigan.
This is the podcast where we cover recent headlines ripped from the financial press. We don't just read them, guys, like those other podcasts. We get into why they actually matter to you, and we give you a takeaway to make it all your own.
I'm so excited today. We're talking about why a liberal arts education might be a great idea.
Yeah, we're both liberal arts graduates, Joe, so this is going to get interesting.
This is, and we're going to try to do this without sounding defensive at all.
Yes, we're very comfortable in our college degrees. Thank you.
Laura, kick this thing off for us.
Just when you thought the show couldn't possibly get better, it's time for your headlines.
This headline is interesting because people kind of frown on liberal arts degrees. When everything's about ROI, Bobby, everything seems to be about, well, what's your return on a college investment? People go, well, don't go for a liberal arts degree because English major, who wants to be that?
Major, Joe?
English. That's specifically why I used English major as my example there. This comes to us from Quartz, is written by Jenny Anderson. The thing that turns a liberal arts education into a meaningful job. That's an interesting click, so let's go. Clayton Spencer, the president of Bates College, a small liberal arts college in Maine, is unapologetic that careers do not arrive as neatly packaged gifts for students. Figuring out what kind of work to do after graduation requires exposing students to different kinds of work and intentionally connecting what they learn in a classroom to what happens in the real world. Quote, if you get love and work right, she said, paraphrasing Sigmund Freud, you sort of figured it all out. Since 2013, Spencer's built a program of purposeful work at Bates, broadly defined as work that both has personal meaning and societal relevance, and embedded it into as many aspects of college life as possible. Guest lecturers regularly visit classes such as a doula or nurse practitioner visiting a psychology class. A 5-week short term in May offers practitioner-taught courses like digital marketing taught by a digital marketing consultant, or dancers teaching students about the business of working in the arts. Students shadow workers in various fields for a day, many of them Bates alumni. The college funds internships in fields that don't pay, such as nonprofits and the arts, for those who do not have the luxury of working for free. It all sounds sensible, but does it work? Spencer decided to test her theory that happiness and fulfillment comes in large part from finding meaningful work. She commissioned a survey of college graduates to find out how important meaning was to their work, whether they'd found it, and what undergraduate experiences helped most in shaping that meaning. This was scary, she admitted over coffee recently. What if her gut was wrong and all of her efforts over the past 5 years misplaced? Bates commissioned Gallup to survey a nationally representative sample of 2,205 college students, 637 hiring managers, and 1,037 parents of college students late last year. Spencer's hunch and experience proved accurate. A whopping 80% of college graduates said it's very important or extremely important to derive a sense of purpose from their work. Less than half had succeeded in finding it. The report released today dubs this the purpose gap. Colleges, Spencer argue, need to close this gap. And she says the secret is work itself. The key to helping students define and find meaningful work is simple. Let them try out a range of jobs. Internships top the list of experiences that students said helped them achieve purpose in work. In order, the following experience had the strongest relationship to graduates achieving high levels of purpose in work. If you had an applied internship or job, was number one. Having somebody who encouraged a student's goals and dreams is number two. Receiving realistic expectations for postgraduate employment was number three. And number four, participating in a class or program that helped thinking about pursuing meaning at work. I think this is big time important, Bobby. I mean, I'll use my own example here. You know, when you look at me and who I am, I grew up in a small farming town. I had no idea what an engineer even was. I thought an engineer was somebody who drove the train. Seriously. I mean, I had zero idea. And yet, when you look at when you check boxes on who Joe really is, I'm totally an engineer. But I didn't have enough experience. I was never shown that. And all I could pick from was the things I was shown. I think if we're shown more careers, we have a better chance of finding the right one.
I agree. I think that we tend to be in kind of a box of what we're seeing in our immediate circle growing up. And it's good to be in a liberal arts college, but also to have an idea of the actual how things happen. So for example, if you want to be a doctor, which is amazing, you're still at some level going to run a business. So are they also going to teach you how to set up, maybe it's a small business, maybe you want your own practice. Are they going to teach you how to do that? I think that's very important. I know in my school, I was a communications major, which is very similar to being an English major. We had Monday night at the movies. We studied the importance of gesture. We studied all kinds of really practical things, Joe. But I had 3 internships and I learned more, for example, at my internship at CNN Business News, working under Lou Dobbs, who's still working. He's at Fox. He was at CNN at the time. I learned a lot about the things that really matter to be successful in a job, in a newsroom, from the internships, not from sitting in a classroom studying, movies frame by frame as a communications major.
I think
It's on the real world.
I wish, now as an employer, I wish more people had communications as as their major, because I feel like so many people have information specific knowledge, but they can't write a basic email. They can't their sense of empathy is off. I get pitches from people, as an example, that have no idea what I'm really looking for. They're just trying to shove stuff down my throat, which never works. So this idea of gesturing, even, the whole thing that companies use.
There was something good in my gesturing class.
Yeah, the whole thing companies use where you don't point with one finger, because of different cultures, you use 2 fingers or your whole hand. I mean, that's
Well, that's a whole side class that a lot of business schools do offer these classes about cultural etiquette and the way to behave. If you're in certain countries, you want to hand your business card to somebody certain ways. So I think that's all really important. But I love the idea that they're also not saying that a liberal arts education is a bad thing. I think that you point out a very good point that when you have a liberal arts education, you do get that empathy, you do get that broader education. That sounds like such a cliche, but it is an important part of being successful in business and in life, to have that understanding of the way the world works, and even just the basic knowledge of history and where we come from, and context for where we all are in the world. So I think the combination of both, of making it purposeful, but also keeping that liberal arts base, is something that we will be following. It's something very interesting and innovative for us.
I think about how many life decisions are made with very little information. When I'm 22, and I have parents that were small town parents and weren't able to expose me to a lot of different things, our town was so homogenous. Everybody looked the same. Everybody went to the same 3 places of worship. Everybody was the same. And then to go from that to a place like the Citadel first, and then Michigan State University, huge, where there's tons of diversity, was just this shock to the system. And I remember being exposed then to all kinds of different cultures and different ideas, different concepts that had I had those earlier, it would have given me more information to make. And I don't know if I can make a better decision because my mind's still developing, but I certainly think I would have made a more knowledgeable decision about where my life was headed than I was going to be an English major and be the next great American writer. Why? Because I like to read. That's why.
And there was no discussion about, well, how much does even the most successful writer make? Most writers do other things for some income. If you're a super successful writer, maybe you're doing that primarily, but for the vast majority of pretty successful writers, they're still doing other things. And you can call the writing a side hustle, you can call the other thing a side hustle, but usually there's some other income stream happening, even if you are a successful writer. And I don't know that anyone even talked to me about a news career that much about income, except I will credit my father, who, as I've mentioned, is a Wall Street guy. And he very much pushed me into business news, because if I was going to go into news, number one, I would know a little bit. So when I came to my senses, I would be able to move into Wall Street, but also it just paid more. That's the truth of it. Financial news pays more than general news. It pays more than entertainment news, which looks so glamorous. But you know what? When you're going to fashion shows, which, by the way, I've had to cover them, not so glam, it just doesn't pay that much. So business news is something where you can, first of all, be intellectually challenged. You meet incredible people that are actually changing the world and disrupting industries. The people I've met have been phenomenal, but also you do get paid more. It's just a fact. So that is something that was a gift from my dad, that at least if I was going to go into journalism, which is not the highest paying career, there are sectors within that industry that are more lucrative.
The fact that he knew that information and could share it with you, I think, is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I think that my parents were very financially savvy, and my mother was a lawyer. I just want to give my mom
some props.
Yeah.
But I think that's our second takeaway is this. I think a lot of people, we see kids that tell you at age 6, I don't like X food, and so they never eat that food again. And at age 6, do they have the wherewithal to make that forever kind of decision? And their worldview isn't that wide. I see people that say, well, I'm very certain at age 15 that I want to do Y career, when they haven't been exposed to a lot of different careers. And I don't think this is about dabbling, but I do think that if I'm a parent, or even if I'm thinking about my own career, changing my environment and exposing myself to different cultures, different ideas, different people in different life circumstances than me, I think that can have a huge impact on your career. I love this idea of what they're doing here at Bates College, of exposing people to a lot of different stuff.
We'll see if other colleges jump on board. I think that it's definitely something we'll be watching, and it'll evolve.
I think those are our 2 headlines. In just a moment, well, I know those are our 2 headlines. I don't think they are. In just a moment, we're going to bring you our big idea to wrap up the show. That's the idea that somehow is going to combine tax legislation with liberal arts education. How are we going to do that? Oh, Bobby and I have a plan. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Tiller and why I personally use Tiller. I use Tiller for my budget and for my money tracking because of the fact that it's so flexible. I've used lots of different apps. We have a Friday FinTech segment at Stacking Benjamins, and so I get to try all kinds of different things. The only one that's super flexible, where I can tell you definitively that you're going to love it, is Tiller, because of the fact that you get to make it the way you want it. I know you will like it because you can make it exactly the software that you like. Now, it doesn't come prepackaged that way, but because it's spreadsheet-based and comes with templates, you pick from a wide range of templates. You just make your own. Very simple to do. And then with a few clicks of the button, you can either add a spreadsheet that you like, or you can delete the things that you don't like. You can simplify it like I do, or like my mom does. You can give yourself all kinds of charts and graphs and information. We give you 2 months free. If you go directly to the Tiller site, you only get 1 month free. Head to stackingbenjamins.com/Tiller, Tiller. Use our link, and you'll get 2 months to kick the tires instead of 1. So thanks to everybody who's done that, because that's how Bobby and I keep podcasting, is when you use something like Tiller. They send us a little thank you for sending you their way. So that is that.
And Joe, I just want to point out, for those that are listening to the audio version and don't get to actually see you on camera, Joe is a champion at gesturing. So he would have made my gesture class in communications professor very proud. That was really impressive, the gesturing and the way that you were able to really emphasize what you were saying and communicate so effectively, Joe. So A+.
Thank you. Sometimes I think I'm Italian, because I got the hands going.
Are we doing the big idea?
Yeah, let's move on to our big idea, because this is a good one. Do you want to take this? You want me to take this?
I'll take the beginning of it. So we want to talk about the fact that, you can dabble a lot, but while dabbling doesn't get you anywhere, the important thing is to broaden your exposure to ideas. And that's going to make you a lot more interesting. It's going to make you more interested. This is really important, Joe. It's going to make you more employable, and you're going to be able to see opportunities better. And I think that's something that will serve everyone well.
We talk sometimes about the first domino versus the second domino. Generally, when we look at something, we think, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And then you look beyond that, you get a whole different understanding. And I'll give you an example on both of these. Number one, a liberal arts education. Where does that lead? You becoming the next barista at Starbucks? No, you're actually learning this wide base of how to communicate with people, how to be more effective at thinking and logic. You're getting a much broader spectrum. Sure, you're going to have to build on it, but you're going to have this firm foundation. First domino says ROI, not that high. Second domino says, if you take a look at a lot of different career paths, having that broad education can be very helpful. It's the same thing when we take a look at this proposed legislation. Initially, you'd think, why wouldn't we do the easy thing? Just go right to the IRS, have them design the software, get rid of all these intermediaries. They're just using it to market anyway. But it really turns out that marketing push that these companies are making, as long as the IRS can still play the sheriff and kind of rein them in, you get this wonderful partnership. These companies get to market. People on the low end of the income spectrum get things for free, and the software is better because it's competitive. If it were just the government doing it, I think we'd see some gridlock. We'd see, well, even if it weren't just the government, it's just one company. If there's no competition, I think it makes it worse for the free filers on the bottom. And broaden your horizon. I like that one.
Yeah, competition is good for everyone.
Amen. That's going to do it for today. I am Joe Saul-Sehy from Stacking Benjamins.
I'm Bobby Rebell from the Financial Grown Up Podcast.
We'll see
Go
you.
Live a Rich Life. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
This show is created by Joe Saul-Sehy, hosted and produced by Bobby Rebell and Joe Saul-Sehy, is engineered by Caden Thompson, and all put together by a pack of well-trained ferrets down here in Joe's mom's basement. You'll find Bobby at the Financial Grown Up Podcast and Joe at the Stacking Benjamins Show. Go say hi to them there, too. Online, visit us on Twitter at Average Joe Money and at Bobby Rebell, or come join a live recording at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. I know you already know this too, but Money in the Morning is for entertainment purposes only. You should not act on anything recommended by a bunch of entertainers in a basement or even a Manhattan kitchen without first consulting your financial advisor. And second, dude, have your head examined. Have headlines you'd like us to discuss? Send them to joe@stackingbenjamins.com or put them on our Stacking Benjamins closed Facebook group. This show is a collaboration of Stacking Benjamins LLC and BRK Media LLC. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor Doug, and I reserve the right to always say, we'll see you next time back here on Money in the Morning.